Welcome to the NSI podcast, where technology, innovation, and strategy come together to empower today's IT leaders. I am your co-host, Cassie Dinsmore. We have host Rich Benson, COO of the Next Step Innovation, and Jonathan Sasse, CEO of Metova, on to discuss application development strategies and the AI train. If you aren't on it, you're getting left behind for sure. So tell us a little bit about Metova and how long you've been there.
Yeah, I've actually had a really interesting journey with Metova. We build custom software solutions for our clients, and it ranges from, as you can imagine, from web solutions to native mobile solutions to hybrid and web solutions and cloud solutions, really anything that helps move their business forward. If we can build it in software, we do the design, the definition, and the development of software. So it's very turnkey. I started working with Metova as a client of Metova in the mid 2000s when I was at Slacker Radio, where we were hired Metova to help us build some software for the BlackBerry, if that tells you how far back that was. And so we built the first music application for the BlackBerry around 2007-ish. And like I said, we were a client of Metova. That relationship was great. Over the years, I worked at, after I left Slacker Radio, I worked with Metova as a consultant for a while, helping to build some bridges there between their clients, SiriusXM and some others. And then I came on full time when my business partner and I actually acquired the commercial business of Metova in 2018. So for the last 7 years, we've been kind of pushing the company more in the direction of the commercial custom software builds for brands that need it. Most commonly working with brands that are either in the state of Arkansas, so I'm here in Northwest Arkansas in Bentonville today, and the states that kind of touch Arkansas are really kind of the areas where we have the most opportunities and where a lot of our clients are. And so today I kind of wear a bunch of hats. I work as, function as the CEO of the company. I also run day-to-day kind of president and operational roles, and as you mentioned, handle the chief strategy role as well. So when we onboard new clients, a lot of that work is me working with their stakeholders, understanding their customers and their needs, their core capabilities, and what kinds of things they might need to have on their roadmap for success.
Okay. Well, I guess that answers my question about how has the team evolved since you've been there? You sound like you have various roles. So how does that play out in your everyday role?
Really we have, so our teams are, we service about 10 to 15 active clients at any given time. Okay. We have somewhere around 15 to 20 active projects, as some of our clients have multiple projects going on. So I've got a great team of folks that work with me here at Metova. We have our technical team, evaluates, the opportunity, the scoping, the resources we need to deliver on these projects. We have a design team that's really focused on the customer experience, user interface, user experience. And then I have, product leaders and project managers as well that work with our clients day to day to make sure we understand them and their customers' needs and how we can put it all together and deliver something for them. So, much of my role is in a support role. For those of us that, sit on the executive side of things, a lot of what we do every day is making sure our team gets everything that they need and do the blocking and tackling needed there, as well as working really closely with our sales team and our business development team to make sure that we're bringing the right solutions to market for our clients and giving, them the opportunity to lean into something that sometimes is very foreign for people. That, there's a lot of companies that don't build custom software every day, and those are the companies that we help the most.
Okay.
That's awesome. So one of the things that we're always looking at when I talk to some of the other business leaders, we always ask this one question. We're asking the same of ourselves here at Next Step, but what sets Metova's approach to application development apart from some of its competitors?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that separate us. So to your specific question, I think what separates us is we tend to really look through things through the lens of a customer. We really focus on what is the problem that the customers may be experiencing, and how might technology help solve those problems. Sometimes, and especially if you're, to use kind of the air quotes here, if you're a dev shop, usually what you're doing is you're bringing technology to a problem with the purpose of using that technology to solve it, and not necessarily trying to identify even what the problem is. Someone hires you to say, I need you to go, bring an army of .NET developers or whatever and go start solving this problem. For us, it's it's much more high level than that. A lot of times we're working with companies that are going through a big pivot, a transformation of some sort. It's very common, especially in the area that I was describing, where you're working with companies that maybe were founded by a father or someone 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and the business has been running really strong. And now that there's technology opportunities to better service their customers, there's some expectation there from the customers that's going to happen. And in many ways, brands aren't really prepared for that kind of a transformation, especially if you work in heavy machinery or healthcare or other environments where you're not leaning into bleeding edge technology to solve your problems every day. You're operating the business. And so for us, what we bring is, a lot of our team on the senior side, we've founded our own companies. We've raised money for companies with institutional money. We've exited companies. We've merged with other companies. We've, built very, very small startups into something large. And so we've seen a lot of the things that are out there. As I often say, we've stepped on a lot of those landmines and kind of know where they are. And for the companies we work with, we try and bring that level of experience to the table, as well as looking at it from the lens of, as I mentioned, what did your customers hire you for in the first place? And are you continuing to deliver on that? Or has that shifted in some way? Are your customers now needing things that you don't provide, or needing in a way that you're not used to providing? And how can we turn that into a product plan and a product roadmap, and look at what technology you do have and try and figure out how do you build for the future so that your customers do get what they want? One thing I talk a lot about, and it's especially, I think, relevant for, certain small to mid-sized businesses, is, very often companies focus on their direct competitors. What are my direct competitors doing? The companies that I associate with doing the same things that I do and maybe fighting for the same customers. And often that's just too small of a lens to apply. And what I mean by that is, when you're looking at technology, most of the time your customers are looking at what everyone else offers them in technology as to what's possible, right? Like, there's things that we do, like when we order a pizza through Domino's, we have an expectation that I'm going to get a message immediately telling me that it's going in the oven and somebody's making it and somebody's bringing it to my house and they're almost here and they're about to knock on the door. And when that happens and it works, as a customer, you say, that's how it should go. When I order stuff, I want that level of transparency. I want to know what's going on. I want to know when my order is going to be delivered to my house or whatever else may happen. And you look across the landscape of all the services that we use as customers ourselves, and we see that a lot, right? Netflix recommends shows to us. Amazon gives us things in 1 or 2 days, right to my house. There's a lot of these examples that we say, wow, that's how it should work. And then when I go work with a company that's not building in that way, I might be disappointed. I might say, you might lose a customer because of how good Domino's and Amazon are at doing what they do. Because as a customer, you're saying, I know this is possible to offer me these benefits, but the brand I chose is deciding not to offer me these things. And so you might lose a customer that has nothing to do with your direct competitors in the moment, but they start questioning your ability to deliver the right solutions to market, because that's what they're used to. I see all these other services that do this, and so I know it's possible. And that's where we try to help. We try to bring a wider view of what's happening in the marketplace. And when their customers say, I want more information, I want information at the right time, I want to be able to manage my account better or my services better, they're bringing that with a level of expectation that's being met somewhere else. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that our customers have a good understanding of what's possible, and then how do we fit something into their timeline and budget that will work for them and delight their customers so that they don't leave, as well as helping them recruit new customers that they're trying to get as well.
So I love, so as you know, we do a lot of cybersecurity at our company, and I think that's one of the things that you're really hitting on, which is it's going beyond just the technology, right? Going beyond the product itself. It's how do we help these customers get through their business problems or their organizational problems or their challenges, or how do we help them with their vision, right? How do we help them sometimes even create their vision? So I think that was for those of our listeners who are starting out and have businesses, or you're trying to figure out how to create a business. I mean, I think that's something to be very, very cognizant of, is what is your consumer need, right? What are your organizational goals if you're not direct to a client? But always remember, you have a client whether you realize it or not. So I I appreciate that kind of thought pattern. That's something that we try to do here, and I would encourage our listeners, if you're going out there as a business, do the same thing. Otherwise, you're gonna be a me too, right? You're gonna be that group that's doing what someone else is doing. So, the I'd like to hear, do you have any cool, and if you don't, that's fine too, any neat projects or new technologies that you guys are working on right now that that's kind of exciting you, getting you jazzed?
Yeah, I think we're always working on some things that are exciting. I think that's the fun part of working on the edge of technology, is we get to start implementing these things pretty early. Kind of to the previous point, and to your comment as well. There's always something that companies hear about buzzing in the marketplace. How do I use this? Right. And like, I want to get AI in my stuff. Years ago it was, how do I fit NFT into this? Where's blockchain fit into my equation? Or whatever the hot things might be, right? Is
Sure.
looking at a technology solution and trying to figure out, how do I work this into my business, instead of trying to look at it from the perspective of, what problems do I have that this technology might help me solve, right? And so a lot of what we're looking at right now is as you can imagine, I think everybody's working on this in some capacity, is as artificial intelligence works its way into our products, is what's the appropriate way to integrate this, and how do we make sure that we continue to keep our customers first as we look for this approach? Now, in some cases, there's AI opportunities inside our business operations that can make us more efficient, give us more access to information and data, help us transform some of that into make better business decisions. And in those ways, it may impact our customers as well. A lot of what we look at is, on the product side, especially if it's, a customer-facing product, is how does AI really help our customers work with us better, solve their problems more quickly and more accurately. And those are fun exercises, right? The last thing I think anybody wants to do is just start bolting on AI agents all over the place, and just expect that somehow it's going to work perfectly and everybody's going to be really happy. I think we've all seen some catastrophic fails in the marketplace when AI is just kind of attached to something without a whole lot of guardrails or planning. But we're seeing some great opportunities, as AI looks at, how can I get customers access to information more quickly that sometimes has historically been just buried in the weeds somewhere. And so one of the things that's really interesting is on the state and local government side, and this works with a lot of small institutions as well. They have all their information scattered all over the place. They've got, maybe SharePoint folders that are just buried with documentation, or a G Suite, shared document or drive that's got things just piling up all over the place. There might be PDFs on people's computers and all the things that we've seen where the information is just everywhere. And one of the things that, we've really been working on is, how can we index that really thoroughly and turn that into an experience where customers can now answer some of their own questions, or get answers to those questions in a way that they couldn't ever before. And those customers could be external or internal. But we're starting to see that happen really, really quickly. It used to be, and this space is moving so quickly, it's, by the time we're done with this podcast, there'll be some great new thing of AI that none of us have read about. But it's moving quick. And so,
Sure.
Even a year ago, this was a pretty heavy lift. How do I take all of this documentation that may be inconsistent, it might be buried, it's collecting dust somewhere, whatever else it might be, and put it in the hands of the people that need it when they need it? And that's been a fun project for us, as we work across a couple different industries doing that, where sometimes within a few days, we can stand up an agent where someone is be able to ask some of those questions. Where is this? How do I get access to this? How do I solve this problem? And be able to return an accurate response right away, and give them the ability to lean into wherever that documentation might be to help, get more and extract more out of that. Sometimes that would take weeks or months, or they'd never find it, or they'd find the wrong one and make some bad decisions because of that. And so it's really exciting to see how fast this is happening, where this is becoming a very, very viable solution for a lot of brands that maybe, like I said, 6 to 12 months ago thought, I don't even know how AI is going to help my business. And now it's helping their business. And so that one, I think, is, in general, is a pretty exciting opportunity, and the speed at which it's moving is really exciting. Right. And I can see, for brands that are on the sidelines still trying to figure out, like, when and where does AI even fit in with my business? A lot of it is really starting to make sure that you're empowering people in your organization that have a passion for it to just learn and consume and be ready for, how do we react to the marketplace with this? because it's moving so quickly that if it's not something that you've embraced already, it's time to. And in many cases, there might be, product owners or senior people in your organization or other people that are already creating a passion for what's happening with AI, and empowering those folks to bring that to the team, help us understand more, like, where does this fit? Like, how does our industry play here? Really, really critical stuff. And I think we're past the point of being able to wait and see what happens with AI. You really need to be acting somewhere. It's just avoiding that pitfall of saying, "Oh, I'm just going to just start running full speed into AI right now, and who knows what's going to happen." I'm definitely not suggesting that. But if you don't have people that are sharing and circulating and planning around AI in your organization, that needs to be something you're investing in, like, right now.
Sure. Yeah, I like the concept there, because nobody has SharePoint sprawl, right, or data sprawl overall, all of that.
Yeah.
And just trying to find sometimes just if you're working in Microsoft Teams, just trying to find the right chat stream that you were talking to somebody in can be a challenge sometimes. So it's a good answer to a common challenge that a lot of people have in business today. So I like that. Do you have like a preferred LLM you guys are kind of building off of?
Not necessarily. Our clients are pretty diverse. In the industries that we work with, we're working with, health tech and heavy equipment and transportation logistics and sports science and entertainment. And sometimes we have to find the right solution. I think, sometimes for people who are just getting started, they're thinking like, okay, I'm gonna have to build my own LLM, which we say, that is probably not the path for most folks. But making sure that you're aware of the differences, what's out there, how does it integrate with the platform and the architecture that you currently use? You mentioned Teams. If you're not using, Azure and Teams and SharePoint and a lot of the broader Microsoft solutions, there might be different LLMs that benefit you, that work with whatever your ecosystem might be. And I think that's important to understand. How does the whole tech stack fit together before you get too far down the road? Because there might be some benefits to picking one over the other. But a lot of what we're looking at is trying to make sure that you're not heading down a path that's going to be so complex and such a heavy lift that you may never get there, because there's plenty of tools and solutions right now that can start solving problems today that will benefit a lot of these companies now as they continue to build their roadmap and their plan. So that's one of the things I would definitely encourage people who are just starting this journey, is to make sure they've got enough information to know, like, let's not just pick whatever the LLM du jour, the thing I read about at Fast Company this morning or whatever else is going on. Is take a good look at, the problems you're trying to solve, the tech stack you do have, the way you're looking to build in the future, and which types of AI and AI solutions in that ecosystem might benefit you the most and get you to market the most quickly, and maybe, minimize expenses and minimize the hassle of getting things to fit together. That's the luxury a lot of companies have right now, is being able to pick from a sea of opportunities that actually aligns pretty well with their business and the tools that they've already chosen.
Cool.
Well, and you talk about, I'm really interested in like learning more about AI. What would you tell your team that is wanting to, train more in that and learn more about that, where to look for that?
Yeah, I would say one thing that's great is there's a tremendous amount of resources right now around being able to, get more exposed to AI, understand what's going on, where the right lanes are to be leaning into. I don't know that I have something super specific at the moment, but I would say that it's a wide range of opportunities. And sometimes I think, starting with looking at, if you have a tech stack, let's just kind of stick with the Azure, SharePoint, Teams, Microsoft kind of environment. If you know that that's kind of where you've invested already, then those are things I would look at. There's plenty of courses. There's a lot of things that, teams can take to get onboarded and just start learning, right? Like there's a bunch of things that are available and accessible to us like right now that doesn't require courses and classes and those kinds of things. But there's some great ones out there. And, as you start to look at, okay, this is the environment I'm in. So what types of AI solutions are empowering that, technology stack or those tools? And then just start really doing a lot of research. And if there's courses available, I would say there's a lot of quick ones too. There's like these 2-day immersive courses or a few weeks here and there. We've had folks on our team that have leaned into, Amazon ecosystem and Google ecosystem and Microsoft ecosystem solutions, as well as, disparate ones where you've got bits and pieces of different things, and really looking at, say, of the things we've aligned with, of the tools we've chosen and invested in, what are the types of AI tools and solutions that are out there that support me, and where are the best opportunities for me to learn? And again, what I would say is, look for those people in your organization that are excited by this, that talk about it all the time, that share links and stories and, hey, did anybody see this? And look at this crazy thing I saw. They're already really into it, right? And it's a great opportunity to say, okay, great, let's find some ways to empower you to learn even more and even faster. And there are tons and tons of solutions out there, but I would start there, right? Find that person, identify the tools that you've invested in, and try and look at what's available to me to help these folks in my organization become, bigger, better, faster, smarter as soon as possible, so that we can inform the decision or the business and start making good decisions.
Okay, thank you. I ran across one of your publications. It was like a month ago, maybe, that about, it was 10 strategies before in 2025 before you start up a web application or development type thing. And I wanted to talk through that. Would you say that would be before you reach out to Metova, or just personally, like if you're taking this on as your company inside type thing?
I would say, really both. I mean, if you're starting your journey, and I mean, obviously now we're heading almost to June now, right? So with the first half of the year is behind folks, but no matter what,
how that happened, I don't know. But
the best time to start is now, right? Like if you haven't started yet, start today. But if building custom software is in your future, or it's even an option for how you're planning for your future, you definitely have, I think, to prepare for that, especially if you're in an organization that doesn't typically do that. So it's going to be foreign. It's going to be different. It's going to be challenging. It's hard to budget for, both in the actual cost as well as the timeline that you're going to invest in it. It's very easy to start and stop and kind of keep going forward, keep going backward until you find the right place. So a lot of that article that you talk about was really trying to help prepare people for, ask yourself a lot of these questions, as you sit around the table, as your stakeholders are looking at what's going to, what's ahead for the future, is start planning now. Like, is this a skill set we have? Is it one we want to have? There's plenty of organizations out there that don't want to become software development companies, right? They're good at what they do. They benefit from hiring, agencies or organizations like us to help them, so that they don't have to build a big division of their organization to take over this piece of the business, that their core business drives them and they need help, right? And so planning for that help is important if that's the way you're going to be. Really most companies have three directions at a high level that are three paths you can go on. One is, we're going to keep doing what we do, but we're going to bring in a technology partner to run alongside us for the foreseeable future. That's going to be our plan, right? We're going to pick the right group. They're going to be our partner, and away we go. There's a version of that where they say, I just want to do that long enough that I can stand up my own team, and then we can run as a unit and let the agency partner or the technology partner go. And that's great too. And then there's a version of that where there's a hybrid, right? We're going to keep some of these agency folks as part of our team, and we're going to staff up our own folks so that we build this core strength and this competency that we need. And we kind of run that way in a balance. And understanding, where you are and which of those paths are most likely for your organization is super helpful, because it's going to help you make a better decision from the beginning, right? Which is, know from the beginning that you have no plans of building your own team, or I want eventually to have my own team to do this, but I'm not ready today. That's an important distinction. And then the other part of that is really making sure, as we talked about earlier, that you really understand your customers' needs. Are we marching forward with the understanding of, yes, let's just start adding stuff to our roadmap because it's the right thing to do, and not really prioritizing your customers' needs or whatever the business outcome might be for that, right? Like we talked about, like somebody may say, by all means, we need to operate AI stuff in our products by the end of this year, no matter what, but to what end, right? Like what are we doing that for? So there's a mix of things. There's offshore and onshore. There's, a number of things that will contribute to which way you move forward with a technology partner. And a lot of that, what I'm trying to highlight there is help arm yourself with the right information before you just dive right in. We've seen time and time again where, for example, using an offshore development agency seems really appealing. It's the cost is pretty low per hour. They can produce a high volume of work. But again, if you're a company that doesn't typically build custom software, trying to manage an offshore development team of engineers can be really challenging because you don't typically manage engineers every day, nor do you manage a project of custom software development. And the chance of that going completely off the rails is pretty high. It's a tall order. But if you're an organization that routinely builds software, routinely builds and maintains custom software, you have skilled engineering managers in your organization, that could be an exceptional option. It could be a great path to go. But if you don't know the difference between the two, it could be a critical failure for your organization. You might be hundreds of thousands of dollars in the hole and 6 to 12 months behind schedule before you even realize we chose the wrong path. And now we have to start over. That's a tough spot to be in when you've invested that type of capital. So, a lot of what I walk through on that, Cassie, is really just trying to help people feel like, okay, we're probably going to have to build custom software. We may or may not be really good at this ourselves already. How do we get started? What things do we have to pay attention to? How do we avoid that scenario of being way down the road and realizing the only option is going clear back to the beginning and picking a different direction? Some ways it can be salvaged. Sometimes it can't. Sometimes you have to come to that really harsh reality that it's just time to stop digging the hole, right? We got to get out. And so, we try to be really transparent. I certainly wouldn't say that our organization is the perfect fit for everybody who needs to do stuff. But at the same time, we might be. And so it's a matter of, for the business owners, stakeholders of the business, product owners, other folks that might be looking at this, take a good look at, what are the options available to you? Where are your strengths? Where are you trying to go? What are your customers' needs? And if you can start answering those questions, the answer sometimes can be really clear of what the right path is to choose.
Okay.
So, it sounds like, so you have a lot of customers that you're doing application development for. Are you looking at, and this is one thing that we're looking at, like in our company, like how do you find time to do, because sometimes you get heads down in a project and you're just like, okay, this is what we do. We get up, we do the project, we succeed, wash, rinse, repeat, right? Day in, day out. But in the end, we're still part of, the technology community. And kind of one of the things that I've always found, and I think I've, having talked to you in the past, innovation is a big piece of what drives technologists, right? How do you go from taking other people's ideas and doing something really, really special? And how do you say, well, we're going to carve off time and we're going to carve off a spirit of innovation within our company to do things ourselves and come up with good ideas and the next cool idea? How do you do that? And is that something you're doing today?
Yeah, it's a difficult balance for sure, especially on, let's say, the agency side, right? Like inside your own organization, I would always encourage, carving off some percentage of your resources for the folks that can pick up their heads and look down the road. It's a tough habit to get into, of doing the thing you do every day and then realizing the world ran past you. And so, we try and help our customers avoid that, but obviously we need to avoid that ourselves. So for us, we kind of have different roles and responsibilities across our team. Now, our agency, while we're not huge, we're not small. It's not like we're like 10 people, right? So that gets more difficult. The less people you have, the harder it is to do these kinds of things. But what we try to do is make sure that we have teams of folks that are, fully leaned in, executing a plan that's been defined. We have a group of folks who are doing that as well as looking down the road of opportunity. And then we have some people on our team who all they do is look down the road of opportunity. And it's trying to find that the merge of those things at the right opportunity, whether it's for a new client or an existing client, to where finding creative ways to solve problems or using new technology, new to today, let's say, to solve the problem, and how viable is it and how likely is it to be something that works there. And so as we do that, I think it's really, really important that you have enough leadership in your team and enough priority in your team so that everybody isn't just heads down all the time. There has to be people who you trust and empower to lift their head up, look down the road, understand the landscape, and bring that knowledge to the team to ensure that we're integrating it in the right places. And if it's not the right solution, it's a similar value, which is don't bother with this right now, or don't do it this way, or here's something really exciting that we might want to bring to one of our existing customers or a customer in the pipeline, to where we'd say, we have something really exciting we think would work great for your brand, and bring it to them. But it is important that we don't just everybody heads down, fingers on keyboards all day long doing the same thing we did over the last year or 2 years, whatever else it may be, or you won't be prepared for the shifts in the way that technology moves.
Right. Well, it looks like we lost Rich for a second, but we'll keep going. So my next question is, you talk about your team a lot, and we have a good team here at Next Step. How do you, when you're hiring new talent, what do you look for your organization and new talent?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think sometimes it gets missed, especially at the agency level. Like, we just kind of assume that everybody has this big machine that recruits talent all the time, and that it's always in motion, which is a great theory. And if you can get it into practice at some level, it works well too. But in my experience, I'm a big culture guy. I really do believe that even though we all have, different functions and disciplines and skills and personalities and all these things, we're still a team. And the team has to operate as a unit and to be able to push and pull in the right direction, be able to quickly move past any conflict, rally together to be bigger than the sum of our parts. All of those things, I think, will lean into kind of the culture piece of it. And so with that, we're always looking for a blend, while having, really strong, technology prowess or or software development skills or design skills, obviously that's great. We're always looking for someone who's, been able to do the work. That's an important capability. But we also know that I really value what I call high ceiling folks, right? Which is, people that have a passion for the work, who probably will achieve higher highs than we could even imagine, because they just are constantly improving and constantly improving. So, there's, I kind of speak in that metaphor a lot, but this idea that you can bring somebody in with a high floor, so the chances of them underperforming are really low. But if their ceiling's low as well, you've kind of created a narrow band for them, right? Which is, I'm good enough that I'm probably not dropping the ball every day, but my ceiling's not so high that I'm just going to excel and excel and excel and grow and grow and grow. I actually really like when we can bring folks in that are a culture fit with a very high ceiling. They've proven their technical chops, but they don't have to have decades of experience or anything like that. It's just, relevant technology experience, a high ceiling, a good culture fit is really great for us. Even though there's a high probability that those folks will move on. Because, you as an agency, sometimes we are a stepping stone, and that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it gets labeled as, a pit stop on somebody's career can seem like a bad thing. But for us, we love bringing people in who are looking to grow, build their careers, develop their skills, improve their overall capabilities. And if that turns into a huge opportunity at an organization someplace for them to go, that's a win for us. We see that as, growth and opportunity for those folks. So while we would love to keep everyone that we bring in, we also know that in many times, this is a phase of their career, not the whole rest of their career, nor would we expect that to be. And I think if you can acknowledge that, it really helps, because there's nothing bad about someone going off to another organization, maybe getting a new career opportunity, and we really celebrate that when that happens. And I think the other part of that too is, that we look for people who, want to try new stuff, that maybe value, like, oh, I get to work on transportation and logistics and sports science and real estate and, X, Y, and Z, right? And I get to move between those projects, and I get to try different things, and I get to use different technology, and I've got a cool team and people I love to work with. And the value of that sometimes can be incredibly high, meaning that same person might be able to say, oh, I can go get a nice pay bump sitting in a cubicle somewhere and working on the same project for the next 5 years, but they don't value that. And so, for us, we do look for people who value that ability to, be flexible, be malleable, but take advantage of that high ceiling that exists. Like, push as hard as you can, try different stuff, bring things to the table that we haven't considered. It's all really fun stuff. And to me, when we're looking to hire, those are the kinds of individuals we gravitate towards, not necessarily the person who might say, yeah, for the last 15 years, I've been writing high quality .NET code and I'd like to do more of the same. Sure, there might be a fit with that, but on the whole, I would say for us, we get more excited about the person who's like, sky's the limit for me. I think I can do anything.
Right. Big culture fit is big in our company too. I mean, you can have the person with the best resume, but if they're not a culture fit, then it just doesn't work, We've experienced that. But I love the way you look at that, that positive note about a stepping stone and how you celebrate when they move on. I need that mindset. I wear many hats in the company. I do HR and accounting. And so I work with the employees a lot. And so I'm always sad to see somebody to leave, but we are always happy for them, but I like that to celebrate them going on. But what else? What's the next question? I wanted to ask about, can you share some notable success stories where your applications have made significant changes for your clients or users?
Yeah, I think, some of them are literally life and death, in which, there's times where, when we're working on projects like that, it's very compelling. And it's also highly motivating to the team. There's times where we're working on, my background is digital music. I spent 15 years, bringing new music innovation to, the world for a long time. And while it's fun and it's very exciting, there's never a moment where you feel like, wow, if this song doesn't play for Cassie at the right moment, something's tragic is going to happen. That's not. You're building an entertainment approach and you want people to be happy and have fun, and that's your focus.
Mm-hmm.
I'll use one example of our customers, Innovator Health. Innovator Health had the idea that remote care, especially in rural health systems, was suffering. If a patient had an acute issue and they lived in a rural area, more often than not, they had to be transported to the urban facility in order to get the care that they needed. And their concept was, and very interesting, is to say, well, what if we had like a 60-inch TV that was oriented like in a portrait, tall. And we had a whole studio for a physician that could broadcast themselves to that. And you could roll that into a patient room and they could see a physician, a caregiver in life size, talking to them about what they're going through. And not only that, but select the caregiver that is exactly the right fit for them, no matter where they are. So whether I'm in rural Arkansas or not, I can go into this clinic and I can communicate with a physician in a way that feels very natural to me. I'm not, there's not like a window like this. This is a full-size physician talking to me. And be able to get the care, the consult, the attention in that moment that I need, without having to be like, well, load up and drive, 4 hours somewhere to where the next hospital is going to be or transport you there. And the idea of being able to distribute that focused care to the patient where they are in that moment was really critical. And so, we help build all of the software that powers those units, so that whether there's no, low bandwidth or whether the facility is, again, located in a remote area, this idea of being able to connect the right care provider with the patient in the health system or the clinic or the hospital that they're in that moment is highly valuable. And, those are the kinds of projects that when you have the opportunity to work on, that you understand, the priority of your work. If I'm able to ensure that this person is able to get the care that they need right now because of the software that we built, it's very rewarding. And it's an exciting project to work on. And I think, that one's a really interesting example as a way of like, sometimes we think of custom software as SaaS applications, or I'm extracting data or charts, or I'm looking at dashboards, whatever it might be. And it is, but it's also really compelling when you get to work on something that says, we may have saved that person's life because of the software that we were able to develop. And that's highly rewarding.
Well, because, we live in I live in a small area, and access to healthcare is basically non-existent. You have to travel so far. And then even then, you still don't get the right person that fits your issue. So that's amazing. That really is amazing. So what advice would you give to an aspiring developer looking to enter the application development industry right now?
I think there's probably a few things. One, having a breadth of skills is highly valuable. For a long time, having a single discipline worked fine. You had, you are a React Native developer, or you're a native Android or iPhone developer, or you're a .NET web developer, whatever else it might be. And you hone that skill and you be really good at it. And that creates value for you as being kind of the switchblade, right? I think in some ways, the Swiss Army knife approach is maybe better going forward, where similar types of tech stacks are going to be good to be aware of and understand, and to be maybe not totally fluent in, but certainly aware and adaptable to, I think is really important. The other part of that is we talked about culture, understanding that, if you're going to be working as part of a team, that there's soft skills that you have to develop, being able to communicate with people and share your concerns and frustrations in a way that isn't a conflict, being able to deconflict those situations, to be able to be open and transparent with your team. Interestingly enough, I found over the years, one of the challenges that, developers especially kind of struggle with most is asking for help. There's this feeling that you're supposed to be able to get the job done by yourself. And whether, that sometimes that comes from school, sometimes that comes with past jobs, but there's this feeling of you're the expert, get it done. Where I'm always encouraging our team, raise your hand, ask for help. We're all here. We're all on Slack. We're all connectable. Everybody's available. If you're running into something that's making it difficult for you to complete your job, your task, whatever's in front of you, it's okay to ask for help. That's just something that, a lot of the development culture wasn't really trained in over the years. It was this idea that you really, the buck stops there. If you get assigned the task, you got to do the task. And I would much rather someone raise their hand, ask for help, bring different ideas, whatever else it might be, than struggle. And in many cases, the developers may have a tendency to, I'm just fighting with this, trying to solve this problem. I don't know what the answer is. This isn't working. It's getting frustrating. And now the pressure is mounting. And now, since I didn't ask for help, the expectation from the team is that I got it, right? So now it's even harder to ask for help, because I've been going so long by not asking for help that the team kind of feels like I'm going to be able to handle it. And so I think I would certainly encourage, young developers or folks that are making transitions out into different career lanes. If you haven't made a habit of asking for help as part of your job, add that to your communication path. Make sure that you're raising concerns or frustrations before they become too difficult to unwind, right? It's always easier to address a problem as it's starting than as it's erupting into something complicated. So sometimes those types of soft skills don't come easily to a lot of developers, and sometimes they do. But it is something that it's something you can focus on, that you can always improve on, and you can do these retrospectives as you wrap up projects and you talk to other people, which is, what could I have done better? Like, what would have helped this project be better? What could I have done? And that exercise alone can be incredibly powerful. If you take the project team and you go around the room at the end of a project, and instead of everybody talking about what went wrong or what could have been better, if each individual person says, I'm going to take accountability for some piece of this project. If I had done this, I think we would have been better. And I want to put that out there. And what it does is it also encourages the rest of your team to support you. They might be like, no, Cassie, I get it. I get that you took that responsibility, but a lot of that was on me. I could have done this. That would have helped you be better at what you needed to do. And as you do that, it builds trust. It builds the communication. It encourages accountability without the expectation of action, like a negative response to being accountable to something. And in general, it makes the whole project better next time. Everybody kind of understands, like, these are the things. That is so much more effective than if you sit on a whiteboard and write down all the things went wrong and how they all need to be better next time. Because it's very difficult to figure out, well, why did they go wrong in the first place? And I don't want to call anybody out. If I stand up and say, Cassie, you did this, and this caused the project to go sideways, that's a difficult confrontation to have in a room. But if it starts with you saying, wait, I just want to let everybody know that I actually think this thing, if I had done this myself, I realized I added some confusion or complexity to the project when I did this. I definitely learned from that. I don't see me doing that next time. That's a way easier. One, it's easier for you to bring it up than have someone bring it up to you. It lets the rest of the team know about the awareness of where things were, and it gives everybody the opportunity to support you and make sure that we move forward. Those are the kinds of things I think we dance around soft skills a little bit, but the reality is that if we all just are more open, more transparent, more willing to engage with our team members, less a pressure of that if somehow I fail or I didn't do as good as I could have, that's going to have a negative reaction to me, knowing that my team's there to support me. And it really builds, it strengthens those bonds. It helps enhance the culture we were talking about before. But it also, it builds trust that like that worked. So I'm going to do that more next time. I'm going to talk more. I'm going to raise more questions. I'm going to ask for help when I need it because that worked. And it made me feel better, made my team feel better, made my client feel better. And we didn't have, a massive eruption at the, mid or toward the end of the project where we're like, wait, somebody was kind of hiding this thing over here. Things went sideways. And if we'd have just known, we could have helped, what happened. Right. Those are the things. I mean, I think there's so much, obviously when you're on a new career path, if you're a young developer, there's so many things that you could focus on, but being flexible in what your skill set is, being willing to develop some of those soft skills and trusting your team to support you by asking for help and offering up your own insights into your capabilities and behavior. It really sets the tone for having very successful projects that follow that.
Right. With our team, we like to, over communicate. We love over communication, just to make sure, even though, I feel like over communication always wins, nobody's left out in the dark, so this is my last question. What role do you believe technology companies should play in addressing societal challenges?
Oh, that's a good one. I mean, I think some of this goes back to the AI conversation as well, which is that being aware of what the implications are of deploying technology into a solution, into environment, into our culture at large, whatever it may be. I think as technologists, we have some responsibility to make sure that the people we're helping understand all of those things to the best of our abilities, and making sure that we are aware of some of those decisions. What could go wrong? Right? Like what's the risk of us doing this? If it doesn't turn out the way we think, what are those negative outcomes, and how serious might that be? Are we creating, an opportunity for customers to get incredibly frustrated or even angry at the brand? Are we putting somebody in a position where, they're making bad decisions because of what we've done and we aren't aware of it? Like are there unexplored paths that sometimes people get on where the technologists that enabled the technology didn't take the proper steps to ensure that the consumers of that technology were protected? And I think that it's important that we always look at it that way, which is that if I bring this technology to market, what are the guardrails that I need to build in around this, or at least to make sure that there's enough awareness around what should we do and how should this work, and what could go wrong? It's really important because sometimes we march ahead, we pave the path, we build the technology, and we measure the impact. And sometimes measuring the impact is too late if you didn't take enough time up front to say, what are the guardrails that need to be in place here? It could be privacy concerns. It could be, health and health concerns, information concerns. It could be that we're presenting things as facts that aren't facts to people, and they're making decisions based on those things. And so I think, awareness of your role. And if you are the technology arm of an organization, of knowing that carries some responsibility to ensure that the product owners, the stakeholders of the company and the product and the brand are all aware of the decisions that have been made, why they've been made, and what potential outcomes could happen. So that you're making the right business decisions, you're making the right decisions for your customer. Nobody wants to get surprised because technology was deployed, the guardrails weren't put in place, and now the business and the customers are experiencing some backlash for that. And somebody says, why didn't we know that this would happen? And so sometimes I think, as the technologists in the room, you have an additional responsibility to call those things out and not just build. It's important that we understand what we're building for who, how they're going to be used, and what are the potential pitfalls to the best of our ability.
Right. Well, thank you. I wanted to, as we close, turn to your personal story is intriguing to me. I see that you're a pro bowler. Tell me what that means. Pro bowler, like you on the bowling team?
No, I'm definitely not a pro bowler. But it's always been something that I've enjoyed. It's always been something I've been pretty good at for whatever reason. Maybe I just started young. But yeah, I have I've had a very interesting journey. I started very, very early in technology and technology startups. I came into kind of the corporate world, if you will, as digital music and MP3s were just taking off inside college campuses as everybody was stealing music and swapping music files and things like this. And so, I had a very interesting opportunity to kind of ride that wave. I was part of a startup that was very successful. We built the first MP3 players. We brought digital music to the mainstream. You could go into Best Buy and buy an MP3 player, and that was something you couldn't do before we created that company. It turned that into another company that did more digital music hardware, and also continued to change the landscape as we worked on music security and music distribution, and how do we preserve the integrity of the artist that created it and things like that with iRiver. And then from there, we launched another digital music company called Slacker Radio, where we changed the way people consume music, where you're interacting with music that's being played for you and curated for you, and you get to interact with it. We stopped carrying around giant playlists and huge hard drives and all these other things, and it changed the world in a pretty fundamental way. And it created the path for the Spotifys of the world. And so it's been interesting to have a hand in that, over those that 15 years or so, where it went from an interesting piracy fad at universities to the way we all consume music today. And along the way have now had the opportunity to build custom software solutions for many industries across many brands, from lawn care to Internet of Things to healthcare and sports science and entertainment and all of the industries that we all touch every single day. Mm-hmm. We get to have a hand in that, and it's pretty exciting. And so I've been pretty fortunate, over the last 25 years of my career, to be able to build the things that are exciting to build, and dream, right? Like a lot of those, 25 years of dreaming up what would be the next cool thing and then getting to build that is pretty exciting.
That is exciting. I mean, the whole MP3 world, I mean, I thought that was the best thing, and you download your music and have it on your little MP3 player. Wow, things have changed so much. And I want to talk about this sneaker collection I've heard about. That is impressive. Your Jordans. How many do you have now?
Yeah, I to be honest, I don't know. So that's how many. I think I have somewhere north of 60 or 70 pairs. It's another kind of interesting story. The short version is I grew up in Beaverton, Oregon, which happens to be the hometown of Nike. Okay. And so, as a kid growing up, with Michael Jordan dominating the scene, and living in the hometown of Nike, I was highly influenced by the sport of basketball and the growth of Nike as in the Jordan brand. And so I had friends and family that worked there. I was exposed to that company at a pretty early age. Became a big basketball fan. I'm a huge Portland Trailblazers fan, and as a result, I got very much into the Air Jordan brand. It's funny though, at the time, I was in high school, and as a high school kid, and we didn't have a lot of money growing up. I certainly wasn't able to go buy a bunch of Air Jordans. I was very fortunate to get to the employee store and be able to get one or two pairs as a kid. But as time went on and they started reissuing the brands, and the original Jordan started to come back out, and some of the original colorways and some of these things, I couldn't help myself. I started to buy the shoes again, and it was exciting. And in some ways, it comes back to the way we interact with brands in general, which is that this is almost probably 15 years later, when I had my next pair of Jordans, and I open up the box, and it's the same pair that I had in high school. And the little things, the way the box looks, the way the shoes smell, the print on the paper, all of these things, you don't really expect it, but you have some of those same feelings that you had when you were a kid, and you actually had, you got your first pair of Air Jordans, and that feeling was exciting and fun. And, so I started to really get back into it. And it's funny because toward the end of this story here, years later, decades later now, the movie Air came out, I don't know, 2 years ago or so.
Yes, I saw that. It was so good.
Yeah. So it documented how did Nike land Michael Jordan. And it was a great movie. And I noticed all the nostalgia vibes hit me pretty hard when I watched that movie. And I'd shared some of my thoughts with some of the folks I knew at Nike, who shared some of those thoughts with Howard White, who runs Brand Jordan at Nike. And then I got to spend, 3 or 4 hours with Howard, who was played by Chris Tucker in the movie, And he sits atop the Jordan building today, as a culture leader of the brand, and shared some incredible stories and thoughts and wisdom with me. And it was a very interesting thing to come back kind of full circle where, the exposure I had, as a teenager to the Air Jordan shoes, and now, wearing them around today, like I said, decades later, and having that interaction with Howard, and having that interaction with the brand, and being able to still have share those moments of excitement of being like, I remember when I had a pair like this, when I was 17 or whatever it may be. And it's fun. It's fun when we get to, get close to a brand like that, and it continues to delight you, well into your adult life, when it was something that, was exciting even then, 30, 40 years ago. So it's a bit of a nostalgia play for me. I love the shoes. Almost all of my Jordans are some version of red, white, and black, which also translates really nicely to my Portland Trailblazers fandom, but of course the Chicago Bulls as well. And so, yes, I have a massive collection of Air Jordans. I do tell people I wear them, though. I even though I've mentioned to Rich that I've got some boxes I haven't worn yet. That doesn't mean I'm not going to. When I buy them, they don't just sit in a box somewhere as an investment. They are the shoes I wear to work every day.
Well, neat. Now, do you purchase them yourselves, or are they usually like a gift from someone?
It's usually me purchasing them. I think sometimes, occasionally, I'll get them as a gift. I think most people realize that's like, I'm probably not going to pick the right ones, so I don't get a lot of that.
Yeah.
But it's still just as exciting to me today when I get to find a pair that I'm interested in, and it shows up. And I have a son who's just finishing first grade today. And he's starting to get excited with that too. And it's fun where we sit down and open the box. And if I can, I'll buy him the same pair in his size.
Pair.
Yeah. So very often when we're leaving in the morning, I'll have my 7-year-old be like, hey, Dad, why don't you wear these Jordans? And he'll have his on. He's like, you wear the ones that match. So when we go out today, we'll have the same shoes.
Oh, I love that story.
It's great.
That's great. That is great. My daughter's finishing pre-K tomorrow, so it's going by so fast,
I'll tell you, it's a wild juxtaposition because 2.5 weeks ago, our daughter graduated from U of A. And so we have, going through her graduation ceremony as she's finishing her biomedical engineering degree at the University of Arkansas. We have a son who's a year older than her, who's in the Coast Guard in Yorktown, Virginia. And then we have our son who's finishing first grade today. So yes, it goes by fast. Hold on to that joy, because next thing you know, you'll be at the graduation ceremony at the university saying, how did all this happen so fast?
I know. We have twin boys. They're fixing to be 2. So that's going to be fun. That's neat about the Jordan story and your son. I'll remember that. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was so, I enjoyed it so much. And I hate Rich, looks like he had some technical difficulty because he wanted to talk about the Jordans because I think he had a nostalgia moment too, where he got some for Christmas and he said he got kind of teary-eyed, because you think back when you're younger wanting them, and then anyways. So, well, thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.
You too. My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the NSI podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share the episode. Got questions or topics you want us to cover? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. For more information, visit us at nextstepinnovation.com.